Welcome back, and joining us for a look at the day's markets action is Antonio Senatore from Cartesian Capital. Thank you so much for your time, Antonio. Quite a bullish sentiment on the JSE today and also on the currency front. Is it what is happening in the US, the economic data there, that is fueling the risk on sentiment that we are seeing in our own market?
Good evening, Zinati. So US CPI fell for the third straight month. So the trend of US CPI is moving in the right direction. Remember, the Fed's target is 2% or less. So now it prints at 3%. The Fed won't necessarily wait for it to print below the 2% mark before cutting, and will cut as long as they are convinced it will reach the target. Today's print, I think, has cemented the expectation that the Fed will implement its first cut during September. Before the report, the market was pricing in a 70% chance of a cut in September. Those numbers are now pricing in a 92% chance of a September cut. If you look at the all-share index, that's gained. The Rand dropped below 18 after the report. Interestingly, the S&P 500 and I think the NASDAQ in the red.
Yeah.
I think that might be, there's no clear, I'm not too sure why that's the case, but I think it might be because of the lower than expected jobless claims numbers that came out.
All right. I hear you on that. Well, let's bring it back home and take a look at some of the companies that came out. Pick n Pay finally made an announcement today after they said yesterday that they would make an announcement. So they really did exactly what they said they would do today. Of course, giving us an update on that rights offer and coming out with a price there being priced at a discount of 32.48%. I looked at the share price and there was actually just fairly muted movement, no jitters on that front. Has Pick n Pay worked out all the bad news at this point?
So they're raising 4 billion Rand, which is just under 30% of its market cap.
Yeah.
It's quite substantial. And they need to do this to wind down their debt levels, which are sitting at over 7 billion Rand. If you look at their current debt to EBITDA, that sits at 6.3 times. That's massive. They need to bring that down to more manageable levels, which would be in the range of between 1 and 2 times. So it is quite high. The rights issue is really to restructure their balance sheet and to position them for further future growth going forward. So we'll see how that plays out. The interesting part is that the discount is around 39%, which will make it quite attractive. And it's expected that shareholders will exercise their rights with this kind of discount. And of course, there's still money coming in when they sell off a portion of the Boxer business. So all of the initiatives are quite positive and should be supportive of the Pick n Pay share price.
Well, talking about capital raises, Sirius Real Estate also underwent a capital raise of £150. Just give us the details on this one.
So Sirius's property focus is on industrial properties in the UK and Germany, which is quite an attractive asset class as industrial property is in demand at the moment. So they did a capital raise of £150 million, which is about 12% of their issued share capital. So it is quite sizable. And they're doing that at a discount of about 3.5%. And this is so they can execute their strategy, which is to go into the market and purchase further industrial properties. So if you look at the office sector, there's an oversupply of that, whereas industrial, it seems to be quite an attractive sector. And they're obviously optimistic about the industrial property space. And the company itself is also quite attractive in the sense that it's a Rand hedge counter.
All right. Well, let us go into mining now, because BHP has announced a temporary suspension of its nickel operations in Australia. But I mean, this is long because they've said that they will review this decision by February 2027. So, I mean, and obviously they're saying that this is to do with an oversupply of nickel, and obviously that putting pressure on the price. Just help us understand this move.
So as you said, it's a temporary suspension of operations on the back of oversupply of nickel in the market. They currently make about a $300 million loss on that operation, which is about 1% of Billiton's EBITDA. So it's relatively small, but it is meaningful. The problem, as you say, globally, there's too much supply of nickel, and that's largely driven by production out of Indonesia and above ground stock. And the cost of production was exceeding the nickel price. And on the demand side, electric vehicle demand hasn't been as strong as expected. Indonesia used to keep their production in-house for electric vehicle production, but now they've started to export more. So the supply side is just overwhelmed. But in the years to come, that might change, which is why BHP will review it again in 2027.
All right. Well, let's wrap up the conversation, Antonio, and get to your stock pick. What are you choosing today?
I chose Signia today. It's a company that has its focus on providing low cost and index type solutions. These are an alternative to active fund management solutions, but at lower fee levels. In addition, and as a general statement, active fund managers have often lagged behind the comparative indices, and therefore indexation provides a valuable alternative. And Signia is well placed to capture flows entering into the space. The company appears to continue to gain ground in terms of assets under management, and it has stated that it will target the umbrella fund space and retail markets going forward, which provides further levers for growth. And as equity markets are expected to improve on the back of lower interest rates and an improved GDP outlook, assets under management will increase, and in turn, management fees, leading to improved profitability. And an added attraction, I think, to the company is its dividend yield, which is over 10% and twice that of inflation. And I think that should at least be maintained in the year ahead.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and for your insights today, Antonio, on what is moving investors' money. That was Antonio Senatore from Cartesian Capital.